Ken Ballard. My mission is to ride to end MS. Initially, I had a friend that was diagnosed. She asked me to volunteer to bike MS ride. So we worked the rest stop and Melissa came out. After we worked that rest stop, coincidentally 4 weeks later, we would find out that we were diagnosed. We, and I say we because it is a household thing. There's one person that gets the diagnosis, but the whole family really has it in one way or another. So from there, I decided that next year working the rest stop would not be good enough, and that's when I started riding. Last year was her 5th year of diagnosis. Found out there were 5 Texas rides, rode all 5. By next month, I will ride my 5th Texas ride this year, which will be a total of 14 bike MS events in, well, since 2009. Since my first ride, I've called it Ride for My Bride.
Just presentable.
Very nice. Thought you weren't modeling for the camera.
I'm not. He just happens to be here. I'm model for one. Just like I ride.
He's such a cheese ball. That's why I keep him around. He still makes me laugh. We met over the phone with a telephone dating service. It was kind of a blind service where you leave each other messages back and forth and then decide if you want to continue talking and then possibly go on a date. And we actually met for breakfast after talking for about 5 hours overnight. And it just clicked from there, and we've been together ever since, and we're creeping up on 19 years.
What was it about meeting Ken that you felt like you guys clicked so immediately?
It was his voice, and he was also a music guy. He played his keyboards for me over the phone. I was a singer, and that just kind of resonated with me. I knew that day that I was going to marry him. He still thinks it's crazy, but he picked me up at my job for lunch. I'm going out to lunch with this guy. I've just met him really for the first time today, but this is the guy I'm going to marry. And there was a 50-year-old guy that I was working with, and he looked at me like I was crazy and said, "You are absolutely bananas."
MS is a very difficult disease to diagnose because it affects so many different things. Affects your central nervous system, which, as you know, affects basically every single function you can imagine.
Numbness and tingling in my arms and my legs. I was losing strength in my hands, couldn't open bottles.
Extremity weakness, loss of balance. Folks do have their mobility impaired.
Forget things constantly, and the fatigue was a big thing, still is today.
No longer walk unassisted, or they no longer walk at all.
It's a psychological thing. It really works on you emotionally, and I deal with depression, and I have been, but this has probably been my hardest year so far. In June or July, I had a relapse, and it's probably been the biggest one that has affected me so far. The other ones that I've had have been small in comparison to this one, so I can definitely see since 2008 that this one's been a big progression for me.
So what's the whole deal?
Well, so back in July, one of the people I've met on the MS rides down in San Antonio, she pinged me. She's like, "You should enter this contest." I'm like, "They're not interested in what I do." She's like, "No, just enter it. Start letting people know to vote." I figured at that point, that's where I would lose, because I was sure a lot of other people had, a bigger social circle. Last Friday, I get an email, and the lady at Fuel, she's like, "I know you said that you didn't think your entry would ever make the webpage, but I want to be the first to congratulate you that you're the winner."
So then what's the plan with it? What are you guys going to do?
So the plan is we're starting Team Ever After. It's going to be for riders who have spouses with MS. And we're calling it Team Ever After because they go beyond the fairy tale. In any bike MS ride, there's a $300 minimum for the Dallas ride.
Yeah.
And so with the 5,000, unless I get too many riders, my goal is to meet all their $300 minimum, so they don't have to worry about that. They can just show up and ride for whoever it is they're supporting.
So the bike rides, for the most part, roughly about 30 years. They've been doing those. Here in North Texas, I think we're celebrating our 28th anniversary. And it just started with a dad and his son wanting to raise awareness for MS. And then it's kind of spawned into what you see today, which is basically over 100 rides in the U.S. What's going on at these bike rides is truly moving the mission forward of ending MS, and they are about 80% of where the society gets their total fundraising revenue from. So this is so much more than people getting on bicycles and riding through small towns. You know, this is about, you know, finding a cure for MS. Ken deciding to do this Ride for My Bride, doing all 5 rides in Texas, which to me is just completely insane. The state of Texas and our staff members here were pretty much in awe of that accomplishment. I personally have been with the society 6 years. I don't know anybody that's done that to date. Just as we're patting him on the back for that, he turns around and says, "I'm going to do it again."
I know from talking to Ken, and he does this all the time whenever I try to pat him on the back for all the miles that he's ridden, he immediately points to his wife and talks about the challenges that she's got to take on, that she bears with this amazing spirit and this courage. And she doesn't bear it because she wants to. She doesn't bear it, you know, because she likes to get out on a bike and do it. I mean, she just has to.
You know, it's mile 50, yeah, there's another 50 to go. But after that 50, the ride will be over. For those living with MS, they don't get to get off that bike. There's no finish line. There's just more miles.
There's people worse off than me, of course. I deal with people through the MS Society that are bedridden, that are wheelchair ridden, and you know, I haven't gotten to that point, and hopefully I won't. But if I do, we'll deal with it as it comes.
Instead of being angry, instead of feeling isolated, instead of just being, you know, defeated by it, he's used it to draw himself closer to his wife. He's used it to inspire other people. He's used it to totally transform himself physically. And now, because of the Spark Your Mission grant, Ken's going to be able to take that, you know, what should be a thing that weighs him down, and really begin to reach out and knit a whole group of people together who are in the exact same condition.
When he found out he won the contest, he messaged me and he told me that he won, and I literally started crying. I mean, I was just like, oh my gosh, this is so crazy. And you know, he didn't expect to win. It's just awesome. I was so proud of him, and he, you know, of course he said, it's not me that won, it's us that won.
To watch him grow into a committee member, a fundraiser, and now this kind of hero, I would say, for a lot of people. Each year has been just something even more crazy, so we hope to have Ken for many, many years, because who knows where the next year will lead after this.
When I look at Ken and Melissa, I see just an amazing example of people who have suffered more than a lot of people. And yet, out of that suffering has emerged this courage and this resilience and this passion and this just fierce desire to not be overcome by it. But I think that's kind of what God does when suffering happens and adversity happens, and all of a sudden we end up with this beautiful example of what it means to be human.
Having won Spark My Mission, I'm going to use the funds to get my team member after started. And with that, I want to thank Call Fire for sparking my mission.